Look, it is a major humanitarian disaster that's occurring over there. Now, we've had the reality of war and conflict and opposing sides justifying themselves and claiming the others are terrorists and such like. It's been a horrible war, and Sri Lanka has a tragic and horrible history. But now we're not dealing so much with Tamil Tigers, military people. We are actually dealing with refugees and civilians, and the Tamil civilians, and if there's some 300,000 stuck in concentration camps, it would appear to me that they are, in terms of the conditions that they're living in, they're actually, and concentration camps, and gathering people of a particular ethnic persuasion together, and these are people who have homes, who have areas where they could be living, to process them, but they're taking far too long. So, you know, it's whatever you call them, it's appalling conditions. And my understanding, a lot of them are living under canvas, under tarps, and the wet season is coming. The monsoon is going to devastate their living conditions even further, and they're going to be underwater with all the associated problems of health and cholera and dysentery and such like that comes from that from a period of time. So we're moving into yet another disaster because the Sri Lankan government hasn't been forced or hasn't had the humanity to act in a constructive way to repatriate these people back to their homelands. Now they're claiming that they're searching for Tamil Tigers. Well, that may be the case as well, but the fact is we've got a massive humanitarian problem here. It's a result of this war where people are suffering. I think it's really incumbent on people and governments everywhere to take note of that and actually start taking action. And we're not getting enough action. My suspicion is because Sri Lanka is building up, China has influence, there's all sorts of geopolitical activities going on, which means that the refugees are left at the very bottom of the barrel in terms of people getting adequate attention, and that is leading toward a massive human rights issue. And we need to get the international community to be more active on it, and we need to find ways of appealing to the Sri Lankan government to actually say there should be UN peacekeepers, there should be UN observers in the camps, there needs to be an international force dealing with this situation, not left up to the Sri Lankan or the Sinhalese victors to deal with these people as a vanquished people. They are all Sri Lankan.
And what do you make of the recent comments by the Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka saying that this is not as it appears, and these people are being well looked after in these camps, and that there's no humanitarian issue? Because that's basically what he was saying, wasn't he?
Well, that's correct. That's part of the government's rhetoric and propaganda, but it doesn't match with the information that I'm hearing in terms of the number of people in very difficult situations, and the fact that we've got a monsoon coming which is going to actually devastate that population. I don't think that there's much humanitarian attitude coming out of the victors, the Sinhalese Sri Lankan government, at this point in time. Well, certainly the previous government's record was appalling, and what we're seeing now is Rudd in fear moving further toward the rhetoric of the John Howard era. And I think that him trying to establish an Indonesian solution in a country which is not a signatory to the international refugee treaties and agreements, and we have a country like Indonesia that has its own poverty problems, housing refugees often in appalling conditions. Back in Sri Lanka, there's a lot of disappearances, there's a lot of rape, there's a lot of lawlessness that's happening, and the refugees are suffering greatly. They've gotten to Indonesia, and it's clear to me that Australia needs to have a more humane policy. The numbers aren't that big in the overall scheme of things. Perhaps Australia should cut down on its business immigration, where people pay their way in, and look at a more humanitarian immigration policy that actually allows people in who are suffering greatly. They're the ones that we need to actually bring into the country. So I'm really concerned that the Labor government is actually, out of fear of an electoral backlash, is actually losing touch with its much stated humanitarian basis to its party platform. That's not politics, and politics is all about power and maintaining power, and politics is about winning, and unfortunately the Labor government, both state and federal, clearly shows that they are not adverse to thinking those terms, and often sacrificing the lives of people as a result. Is one of those tragedies that occur when people are making decisions looking over their shoulder at the next election coming up.